everyone, and welcome. We're diving straight into this critical situation that's unfolding right now between Israel and Hezbollah.
Yeah.
We've got breaking news from NBC.
Right.
And the casualty count in Lebanon is tragically high. We're talking like hospitals being overwhelmed with the injured, schools closing.
Yeah, it's really...
To accommodate them, it's a really intense situation.
Well, this is a long-standing conflict, of course, but the intensity of these recent Israeli airstrikes, I mean, it really marks a serious escalation.
Exactly, and that's what we're going to unpack today. Like, what is behind this surge in violence?
Right.
Our NBC article highlights Israel's official stance. They're claiming these airstrikes are about targeting Hezbollah infrastructure and ensuring the safety of Israeli citizens. But is there more to it than that?
Well, on the surface, I mean, that's the justification they're giving.
Right.
But what's really striking is how Israel is going about this offensive.
Right.
The article uses terms like, extensive, precise strikes.
Okay.
But those words, I mean, they take on a whole new meaning in such a densely populated country like Lebanon.
Especially with the reports we're getting about the rising number of civilian casualties, right? I mean, how precise can these strikes really be in such a complex environment?
That's the million-dollar question, right? I mean, even with advanced weaponry, the risk of collateral damage is enormous.
Yeah.
And what's particularly telling is that Israel seems to be aiming for the complete dismantling of Hezbollah's capabilities within Lebanon. I mean, this is a goal far more ambitious than we've seen them pursue in the past.
And to make matters even more unsettling, the article mentions that Israel is actually warning Lebanese civilians to evacuate areas near Hezbollah positions. I mean, it sends chills down my spine. Just thinking about it. Have we ever seen this kind of preemptive warning before?
Not to this extent. I mean, it's a clear signal from Israel that they are prepared to unleash a level of firepower.
Yeah.
Unlike anything we've seen before. And they're essentially telling civilians to get out of the way.
Which begs the question, how is Hezbollah responding to this escalation? Because, I mean, they're not just sitting back and watching this all unfold, are they?
Definitely not. Definitely not.
No.
The article details Hezbollah's counterattacks.
Sure.
And these aren't just symbolic gestures, okay? They've launched rockets deep into Israeli territory, hitting not only a military post, but a defense firm as well.
Okay, that's huge. To strike that deep within Israel, that means Hezbollah has some serious firepower at their disposal.
Oh, yeah.
What can you tell us about their capabilities?
What's important to remember is that Hezbollah has been strategically building its arsenal for years.
Right.
And this recent wave of attacks demonstrates just how potent a force they've become.
Right.
We're not just talking about, lobbing a few mortars over the border.
Right.
This is a highly organized military force that can now threaten strategic targets deep inside Israel.
Yeah, it's incredible how quickly things have escalated. It feels like the whole world is kind of holding its breath here.
Yeah.
Wondering what will happen next.
And with good reason.
Yeah.
The article mentions President Biden stating that the U.S. is doing everything possible to prevent the conflict from widening. And the State Department is urging all Americans to leave Lebanon immediately. I mean, these aren't decisions made lightly.
Right. It really highlights the potential for this to spiral out of control, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
And how this could draw in other countries and become a much larger regional conflict.
Absolutely, yeah. It's like a chain reaction waiting to happen.
All right.
The article hints at some of these geopolitical factors. You have Israel, understandably concerned with its security, locked in this struggle with Hezbollah. Right. Then you have Hezbollah, backed by Iran, which adds a whole other layer of complexity because of Iran's regional ambitions and tensions with the West.
Wow, so it's like trying to untangle this massive knot.
Yeah.
So how does the current situation in Gaza play into all of this?
That's another critical piece of the puzzle.
Okay.
With thousands dead from the recent conflict there and the massive displacement of people, it creates this incredibly volatile backdrop for what's happening between Israel and Lebanon.
Right, and it makes you wonder, where does it all end?
Right.
Is there any hope for a resolution, or are we destined to just witness these cycles of violence repeating endlessly?
It's the question everyone is asking, but unfortunately there are no easy answers.
Right.
Having said that, the article does point to some glimmers of hope.
Okay.
International diplomatic efforts are underway.
Okay.
And there seems to be a recognition from all sides that a wider war would be catastrophic.
So amidst all this chaos, what are the things that we should be watching for in the days and weeks ahead? What could either calm the situation down or make it infinitely worse?
Well, one significant development to keep a close eye on is the flow of information.
Okay.
Especially concerning the reports of Hamas leader Yahya Sinwar possibly being killed in an Israeli airstrike.
Okay, for those of us who might need a quick refresher, can you remind us who Yahya Sinwar is and why this is such a big deal?
Of course. Yahya Sinwar is the leader of Hamas in Gaza.
Okay.
He's been a powerful figure in the Palestinian resistance movement for decades.
Right.
Now, while his death is unconfirmed, if true, it could have a seismic impact on how this conflict unfolds.
I can see how that would depend heavily on how such news is received and interpreted, right?
Exactly.
Like if it's seen as an escalation by Israel, could it lead to even more violence?
Precisely. It throws another match onto an already volatile situation.
Right.
And internally, it could even spark power struggles within Hamas itself.
Wow. Further destabilizing the region. This really underscores how even what might seem like an isolated event can have ripple effects far beyond what anyone might initially imagine.
Yeah, it's like a house of cards, isn't it?
Yeah.
One wrong move and the whole thing could come crashing down, but on a larger scale. What about the international community's role in all of this? The article mentions their concern, but are there any tangible steps being taken to address the root causes of this conflict? Or are we stuck in this endless loop of action and retaliation?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the answer is far from simple, while diplomatic efforts are ongoing.
Right.
There's a sense that they're always playing catch-up to the rapidly escalating violence. It's a constant race against time.
It's a scary thought to think about. Diplomacy just struggling to keep up with this pace of conflict.
Yeah. Is it even possible to untangle decades of animosity and mistrust in time to prevent an even bigger catastrophe?
It's a massive challenge, no doubt.
Yeah.
And as we've discussed, the potential for this to spiral into a full-blown regional war is terrifying.
Yeah.
The article paints a grim picture of what that could look like. Not just the devastating impact on Israel and Lebanon, but the ripple effects throughout the Middle East and the world.
Right.
We could be talking about a global energy crisis, a massive refugee crisis, even the strengthening of extremist groups exploiting the chaos.
It's overwhelming to even think about.
Yeah.
In the face of such immense challenges. Where do we even begin to look for solutions?
Well, as bleak as things may seem, I think it's precisely in these moments that diplomacy, dialogue, and a commitment to understanding the root causes of this conflict become even more critical.
Right, yeah.
It's a long and winding road for sure, but the alternative, more violence, more suffering, is simply unconscionable.
Yeah, I think you're right. As difficult as that path might be,
yeah,
it seems like every conversation we have about this conflict ultimately comes back to the immense human cost.
Yeah.
Sheer numbers are staggering. But, it's so important to remember that behind each statistic is a human life forever changed by this conflict.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's easy to get caught up in, the political maneuvering and the military strategies, but we must never forget that at the heart of this are real people.
Right.
Families displaced, lives lost, futures shattered. Those are the real tragedies of war,
right.
And they deserve our attention and our empathy.
So as we try to make sense of this rapidly evolving situation, I think a question worth pondering is, in a conflict so deeply rooted in history, with so much at stake, can military solutions ever truly pave the way to lasting peace? Or does the real key lie in dialogue, however challenging it may be, as the only path toward a different future? It's something to consider as we continue to follow this story and its impact on the lives of so many.